You had me at Cello, Cello. You had me at Cello. You had me at Cello. Oh, you had me at Cello.
Good afternoon, everybody. Look at the time. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. Time for another edition of Cello Chat. And with me today, I'm delighted to have Karl Knapp. Dr. Knapp, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Mr. Benjamin.
Terrific, terrific. Would you please tell our audience who you are and how you get to where you are today?
Sure. I'm Karl Knapp. I play the cello. I'm from Wisconsin. Grew up near Whitewater, Fort Atkinson, and started in elementary school. Started playing cello in elementary school. Came home one day in fourth grade. Told my parents I really wanted to play cello. It wasn't a totally foreign idea. My parents are music appreciators, and of course they told me absolutely not. You're playing soccer at the top right now, and you can only do one thing. So when I still wanted to play cello after soccer was done, they said yes. So persistence. And then I'm Wisconsin-based. Went to different. I went to school in Illinois, then came back to Madison for Master's and Doctorate. Was on very much the university track, teaching university, but also not sure which arm of music am I going to actually go into. Keep my options open. Did some freelancing in Madison area and then also Minneapolis. And started taking interviews for university jobs and applying for, at least. And then eventually got the cello professorship at University of Alaska Fairbanks. I was there for 7 years, and it was an amazing experience. It taught me a lot, including university teaching was not particularly for me. One of the wonderful things about Fairbanks is the amazing community of pre-college instrumentalists. And there's an incredible Suzuki community up there. And of course, I had grown up understanding what Suzuki was in the periphery. I was not a Suzuki student. And I knew that, from my elementary school brain, it was the Suzuki students could play, but they couldn't read. I think a lot of us have experienced that. And then I found out how many students from Fairbanks had amazing professional careers, and it made me reconsider what Suzuki could be. Also, it was just an incredibly supportive community. Anyway, so that experience in Alaska had me reconsider some things. Also, I found out that I really like working with younger students, which I didn't expect. I really didn't. And so transition to now we're in. My wife teaches at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And so we moved here to Amherst, Massachusetts, and I am a full-time Suzuki cello teacher. I have a studio of about 30 students, and they range in age from 5 to 75. Not everybody gets a fully Suzuki experience, but it was it's been really amazing. And also, weirdly, I'm now also going back to university teaching. I'm now the instructor of cello at Amherst College as well. So I've done everything, but also a little bit of a lot of different focuses, and now I'm coming back to university teaching, but in a different way. And I really am looking forward to this. So
excellent. Yeah. universities certainly vary enough that if it's not for you at one institution, it may be at another. It can be quite a different beast.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Now back to the Suzuki thing. It's this amazing influence that he has had, the
Absolutely.
longevity of his approach is just great. And it's countless thousands of people who have benefited enormously from his teachings, and those of the people who've been trained in the approach. And I like that you, on your website, you also emphasize that you like the philosophy as well. And you
Absolutely.
highlight two of the most salient things, the nurturing component of it, which is so great when you contrast that with the idea of, let's say, the kind of cutthroat competition. And it's funny, there's a lot of youngsters who react very well to the idea of competition, but competition is not incompatible with a nurturing approach, you know? And so I kind of wanted to get what your thoughts on that, and also the other point that you make as far as anybody can learn. And there, I'd like your opinion on the difference of attitude towards that between, let's say, 5-year-olds and 75-year-olds. Because on the one hand, 5-year-old is kind of having to learn how to do everything. And in many cases hasn't necessarily developed the idea that, oh, there are certain things I wasn't born with the ability to do. No, it's like, oh, this is something new. Well, I'm going to try it. On the other hand, there are times where the adult learners are, at least when they come back to take lessons, they know that they want to learn, and the talks with them about the need to apply yourself and actually put in the work are not necessarily as much of an arm twisting exercise either. So
That's true.
do you want to elaborate on your thoughts on either or both of those points?
Sure. So the nurturing idea to me is just I'm not familiar with a lot of teachers who don't believe that they should nurture their students, but it really is just recognizing, for me, and this is one of the things that Suzuki says, to backtrack slightly, there was only one Suzuki teacher, and that is Dr. Suzuki. Everybody else borrows his ideas and creates their own version, and uses those or does not use them to create their own way of teaching. But for me, the idea of nurturing is recognizing that every person is slightly different. And nurturing, I'm interested in I'm learning, it's a little cliche, but I am learning just as much, if not more, in a lesson than hopefully the student is learning. But what I'm learning is how to teach that particular student. I'm interested in learning what motivates them. And everybody's different. And I received some feedback from some parents recently, and two different parents at different times. One said, "We love how high energy you are in the lesson. It really helps. It really helps with my son, who needs that energy." And then another one said, "I love how low key you are in your lessons." And my daughter really responds well to that. So I've been trained well to recognize that different people learn differently. And I'm still learning about each of my students and what is going to take them to the continuing down the road to the next level, whatever metaphor you'd like. But so that's, to me, that's what nurturing is. And then any person can learn, absolutely. And it does come down to the approach. A 5-year-old, you do not talk about, well, we got to feel the weight, and each of those fingers are, we're going to start working on thumb position. And then a 75-year-old, you don't necessarily approach it like a little game. And I do some of the same ideas, but maybe the 75-year-old doesn't need to learn the lyrics to Monkey Song. I usually throw it in depending on their attitude toward it, just as something to be fun. But anyway, it's I think they're really connected. This nurturing and teaching anyone in just finding what, as the teacher, you are interested in finding what motivates the individual student. And I'm still learning about, and it also changes. Like a 5-year-old motivation is going to be very different from a 7-year-old, 15, 75. As they mature, as a student matures, it's going to their motivation is going to change. So yeah, that's my private one-on-one ideas, but also one of the things, to go back to the previous state in which I lived, in Alaska, there was a large community of cellists, pre-college cellists, that were just outstanding humans. And they were great cellists too, but like just amazing people. And Fairbanks and Alaska in general can have that effect on people when everyone is collectively being threatened by where they live. Like, people aren't supposed to live where it's so cold. The environment doesn't want you there. But, we as humans have found ways to get around it. And there's such, because of the geography, because of where they live, there is this sense of, we are a community and we help each other. We figure out how to do things together. And because of that, I think we were able to create an amazing first cello choir of different levels. That was my first movement into. I had a college cello choir that was more traditional, but then these high schoolers and middle schoolers getting together to play. It was interesting in that group to try to figure out what would keep them coming back. The idea was, we want to get them to the point where they were asking their parents, okay, it's Tuesday, when are we going to cello choir? Why can we do this more? Can it be longer? And I think, my approach was to keep it super fun, and then also foster this sense in that group of continuing that community. They're all interested in helping each other and cheering each other on. And what we started with was some traditional arrangements and some things from that I was able to get from Rick Mooney's Cello Institute website, and they were fantastic. And I strongly encourage people to find that. I am blanking on his, I think it's I'm going to blank on the name of it, but there are some great arrangements out there that he's made, and a number of people have contributed to his website. But then I just had this feeling that what if I start making, I had dabbled in making my own arrangements in grad school. And it was just really fun to do. And it certainly came out of the Apocalyptica model. I was in undergrad when that first Apocalyptica album came out. The best one, by the way. Don't tell them I said that. But that first album that they created, there's no drums. They are doing every sound on the cello, and I took that as kind of a not limiting factor, but the reason what's going to drive me to create an arrangement. And I wanted to figure out how can we replicate the sound of a popular tune on the cello, something that they would find fun, but their parents would recognize. And so it was finding things, they would probably recognize it too. And they usually, the students would eventually want to hear the original. But what was so interesting, especially if we had rehearsed something long enough, they preferred the cello version. And it just floored me. I mean, I do too, but for different reasons. Anyway, so I was interested in that, and that motivated students to want to come back. Now, everybody reacts to that slightly different. There were some people who were motivated to, every time they went home, they wanted to practice their part. Other people's didn't necessarily practice between rehearsals, but they definitely came back because they wanted to keep learning. So, that everybody learns slightly different. And I took it as a win if people came in with a smile and left like, oh man, we have to go home now. That was really exciting. And then then we expanded. I say we, amazing people in Fairbanks created with, I was a co-creator, but the Alaska Cello Intensive grew out of our ideas for what these younger students could do. And it became a 2-week-long cello experience in a way, but also Alaska experience, showing what Alaska could offer in the summer to people, and certainly for the first number of years, it was most, if not all, Alaskan cellists, and it was so amazing. And they brought in a number of outside educators, amazing teachers who had connections with people in Alaska, but and who had been teaching online, but now there was an opportunity to teach in person. And Alaska Cello Intensive, just an amazing thing, where we rehearse all day and play all night. So many exciting experiences for students, and it continues. So so that's Alaska Cello Intensive, another really excellent way to help students get motivated. That was just an amazing experience that I've had.
Terrific. You're segueing through my list of questions very nicely. This is great. But back to that topic of motivation, if I may, I like that even in talking about the Suzuki philosophy and your philosophy of teaching Suzuki, that it really sounds like the idea of figuring out how best to teach a given student to you is exactly tied to figuring out what motivates them, so that the issue of motivating them is not an adjunct or a separate thing at all. It's just baked right in.
Yeah.
But do you have any words of wisdom that you want to share for people about what you learned about motivation? Do you know what I mean? Because there's this thing of motivating ourselves, even on our days where we're kind of lower energy, or there are other things that could demand our time.
Right. Well, I've done a fair amount of reading on this topic, and I strongly encourage teachers to do that. There's been a lot of interesting research done on motivation and writing because of the research, and some of the books that I encourage people to look for are Daniel Pink Drive, which explores what drives people, what motivates people. And then one that I'm rereading for, I think this is the fourth time, is Punished by Rewards by Alfie Kohn, where we have in our society a very baked in, accepted model, which is, if you do this, you will get that. And that is true for a lot of things, but it is not necessarily a motivation if we want people to be interested in that more than this. Anyway, if you practice your cello, you'll get a piece of cake. Students are going to be very interested in the cake, and you see cello and practice as a way to get the cake. Now we take away the cake. Why do they want to practice? And that they're very interested in the cake, and they not only does the motivation for practice go down, but it's viewed differently. It's viewed as a tool to get that. It's viewed, and if our main purpose and goal is to create intrinsic motivation, using extrinsic motivation and just assuming that it will eventually go away, if you can get rid of the extrinsic motivation, then a student will just find a way to still do the thing. It's actually not good, and it's detrimental for a student's motivation, because they're not thinking about what you want them to do in the way you want them to do it, the way you want them to think. So some of the ways I don't do a lot of praising in my lessons. I do a lot of celebrating. I don't say, wow, you sounded great there. I ask a student, do you notice what that sound was? And if they say that they were excited about that, then we can have a celebration. We can be like, yes, I agree. That was, I thought so too. That was amazing. I'm still learning. I am not at all, I'm not perfect, but I'm still working on it. But that's one thing that I'm trying to frame how I work with a student to, we are together working towards a goal. And sometimes that goal is just, let's find that ringing tone. Let's get that G in tune. Yeah. And a lot of noticing back and forth, like, is that could you find something different? It sounded a little duller than the last time. So there's that. There, as far as longer term motivation, there's the performances. I have 2 studio recitals a year. My spring, early summer one is very much designed to be a party. We meet in my yard. People bring picnic blankets. We have food. We play. It's been a little bit different over the past few years. Not a lot of sharing of food. But if we can it's a low key thing. At least that's the way I'm trying to design it. And then we can just have a party about it, but then there's always going to be students that they go through ebbs and flows with motivation. And it depends on what's going on in their lives. It depends on where they are in the repertoire. As pieces get longer, the idea that they're going to be on a piece for much longer than they were before, that's an interesting concept to take in. Once we get to book 4 and Braval Sonata first movement, and first of all, it's 2 pages and the type is so much smaller and it's a really long tune. Some people will recognize that and wait, we've been on Braval for a long time, and other people don't notice it, and I won't point it out to them. But finding what's going to help them improve and recognize that improvement is also part that I've found to help motivation. Sometimes that recognition is just within the lesson. Did you notice, and can you compare what it sounded like here versus now? And how did we get there? Can you do that on your own? Nice. So that's what, and then there's also, in high school, I will bring out, I record all of my my performances of the studio recitals, and I'll say, hey, you want to look at 6 books back, and let's hear what you sounded like when you were playing in book 3, and recognizing that this is a long-term thing. The improvement happens in little spurts and starts and stops, and then also there's a longer term trajectory that happens that is not hard to see when you're down here.
Yeah.
So
and from day to day.
Yeah.
All right. Any words, recommendations as far as if somebody watching this is considering that, it would be cool to do my own arrangements, but I've never tried one before. Did you just roll up your sleeves and dive in, or how did you get into arranging?
So for me, a little moment of admission here. I don't listen to a lot of classical music. And I understand, I love it, but just like a lot of people who do the thing that they love for a career, when you're on your off time, it's hard for me to listen to things that I would perform. It feels a little bit like work, and I'm not at work at this moment, which is an interesting byproduct of doing this for a career. But for me, I know that's not true for everyone. I'm pretty sure Parry Karp lives, breathes, and everything about chamber music and classical music, and can't get enough. And there are certain pieces, orchestral pieces, that I absolutely will sit down to listen to, but it's not something I do. But anyway, what I do listen to is a lot of other styles of music. And what I started to do was, I think my very first arrangement was by 3 Days Grace. And this was back in at least 20 years ago. 3 Days Grace, it's kind of a new metal type of band. And in that style, a lot of the tuning, as many of us know, there's the tuning of the guitar is pretty different to a cello, but in certain styles and certain kinds of popular music, the guitars will be tuned down. So the low string, instead of being E, is now C. And then the next string, which should be A, is now a G. So I found that some of these tunes that were tuned down like that would fit really well on cello because they have the same low strings as we do. And my first arrangement, just because I was like, let's try this. Let's see how this would work, was Animal I Have Become, from one of 3 Day Grace's albums. And it fits right on the cello, and it's super fun. And I did this in grad school while I was at Madison. Not intending to have it played at all, not at all. I just thought, wow, what would happen? And I don't think I did a thing again, really, until I was in Alaska, and I needed more repertoire for a group that I was teaching. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could do something like this? And so I threw that in front of them, and these middle schoolers and high schoolers like, we can play just these open strings and be super rhythmic. I'm like, yeah, wouldn't that be fun? Yes, it is super fun. And so it came from that. And then one of the really first arrangements that I made that was super successful, that people really love to play, and that's why I say it's successful. I mean, the 3 Days Grace, the Animal I Have Become, is super fun. I wouldn't say it's my best one, but it was one of my first, and I very much took the model of the Apocalyptica for cellos type of situation, but understanding that it could also be moved into a cello choir situation with two or more on a part. So anyway, the next one that was super, that they loved, was Starlight by Muse. And I don't know if some people approach arranging with, how do I say this? I certainly started arranging with the idea that I need to be really true to the original, with a very much related to honoring the original score. Okay. I have recently, in the past few years, have started to change that idea because it doesn't always work on the cello if you're in D flat, or there are other ways to, like, if you need to hit more notes, let's not use that key that was maybe chosen because the singer couldn't go high enough. Let's use this key that will help make it'll be easier to do on the cello. And I'm okay with that. The issue is, especially when I'm doing arrangements for elementary school students in public schools right now, a key that there are many keys that just don't work super well for people who aren't going to leave first position. If we can move it to D major that'd be great. And that's okay. And then if people want to listen to it, I will just tune down the original or tune up the original. So that's my approach to arranging, and how my entrance into arranging was very much, can I do this? And then some guiding principles for me have always been, I want to use the cello to recreate the sounds that I hear. Some people go slightly different. They want to bring in shakers. They want to maybe have simple drums in the back. I feel for my own arranging, I'm very much, I want to do just the cello. Can we do this just on cello? And that sometimes that means hitting the body of the cello. If there's a shaking part, I will rub the cello. And then there's a lot of new effects or effects that are used in a lot of tunes with that are created electronically. That I'm like, that's the creative thing. So how for me, how do I perceive the sound that I'm hearing, and can I recreate it somewhat on the cello so people are like, oh yeah, I hear what you're doing. And that's a lot of fun. But another source for me, as far as arranging, has been choral music. I think another admission time, when I listen to vocal music, I generally don't hear lyrics, especially in a choir setting. I hear just absolutely gorgeous sounds. And if I'm going to focus on the lyrics, I have to have it in front of me. And that's just my brain. I know people hear lyrics all the time. I hear sound. And so I've made arrangements of choral music. Allegri Miserere is phenomenal on cellos. There's a lot of other things. Just if it sounds good in the human voice, it's probably going to sound good on cello. And yeah, so those are some kind of coordinating and some ideas that guide me as I'm making my own arrangements. And as far as ideas for people, find something you like, create some rules. For me, it was, I've got 4 parts. I like the sound of this. I got 4 parts. One of them's going to be the drums. One of them's going to be the bass line. Another one's going to be the guitar, and another one's going to be the voice. And those are my rules, and they're arbitrary, but that's what governs how I make an arrangement of a popular tune.
All right.
Choral music is easier. It's just easier.
So would you talk a little bit about 1200 Horsehair? Oh,
sure. So I am blessed to live in this part of the country. In Western Massachusetts, there is a glut of non-traditional cellists. There's the amazing Stephen Katz, who has come up with such amazing things to play on the cello. His techniques, his flying pizzicato technique that he's created and is just phenomenal. And what he does with the cello is just amazing. And he lives half an hour from me. Equally, I was introduced to Dave Hoy, who got a jazz degree in at Michigan on cello, who also lives within a half an hour of me, and we would just hang out and be like, totally from a self-centered perspective, I totally wanted to hang out with him so I could copy what he was doing. And I wanted to learn from him, really. Turns out that he's a really great guy, and there are other reasons to hang out with him. But we would just meet once a week, and basically it turned into band practice. The two of us, Dave and I, would meet, and Dave and I were kind of close to moving to Massachusetts around the same time. So we were both in this situation of, what can we do here? And he wanted to create a group. And I said, well, I have all these arrangements. And he said, I have all of these original tunes. And so we found some people to play with us that we were great cellists and who we liked. We're like, whoever we asked to do this has to be fun to hang out with, because we're going to be doing a lot of that. And so 1200 Horsehairs was born out of our desire to use the cello in a non-traditional way, and also this backlog for both of us of arrangements for cellos, and then also finding other cool cellists to hang out with. So yeah, that's 1200 Horsehairs, and we generally do a lot of there's jazz, there's folk things. It's generally like Eastern European, Bulgarian folk tunes, which are awesome because they'll be in like 7/8, and it's just a raucous good time. But then arrangements of Allman Brothers, or arrangements of I did a I can remember there's a band called Ghost, and I made an arrangement of Cerise for cellos. It's super fun to play, super fun. And some of the reasons that I like that kind of tune for this group is that there will be keyboard solos that you're like, I'm not writing this for me. Let's see if somebody else can do it. Or there's a guitar solo, and in this group you can write it out exactly, but then also let's see what can somebody else create over those few bars that the solo is happening, and then there's just a lot of really cool cellists in this part of the world, other parts too, but for some reason in Western Mass, in this particular area, there's just the people who inspire me to do and explore different parts of what the cello can do happen to be around here. And then, of course, Mike Block in Boston, and Natalie Haas. There's a phenomenal performance venue across the river from where I live that these amazing cellists come to. They're not playing Bach, which is lovely, but they're playing their original tunes or Scottish tunes, and all these different kinds of things, and it's so exciting to hear and to take students to.
Yes, sure.
And to have them experience, like, you can also do this with the cello. And it's really exciting to share these experiences with students. They to see them light up, like, whoa, I didn't even know. And then one of the things that I do, I think in all of our teaching, we think about the things that we wish we knew earlier, and we focus on them and make sure that our students have those things earlier. And I do a lot of theory with students. I make sure that they know their key signatures, they know how to play the scales. And then once those start to show up and be like, oh yeah, I can play that scale, then I'll be like, well, here's a drone, what would you play over that? And just have them just experiment. And if so, yeah, I'm subversively, well, overtly really teaching improv as another skill, but improv with the understanding that comes from a theory background.
Yay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, what performances or projects do you have coming up in 2023?
So, my wife and I we put out an album. It's really my wife's album. I happen to be on it because my wife's way cooler than me. But we, do I have it nearby? I don't know. It's around here somewhere. Is that it? Yes. That's our album, Transparent Boundaries.
Nice.
That's my wife, and that's me. Anyway, we commissioned a bunch of pieces, and we put together a nice recital that we are going to be performing in Madison on the 24th of February at 4:00 at the Collins Recital Hall. And we're also going to be doing that same thing out in Massachusetts in March, and then in April we'll be taking it on the road to San Francisco. So there's that's coming up, and then we'll do some. I do a lot of performing right now with the people who live with me, which is my wife. It's been a little trickier in the last couple of years to perform with other people. It's getting better, of course, but people are finding other things to do, and sometimes we just don't have as much time. So I'm fortunate that I like my wife, and she sounds great, and we play together. So we'll be doing a little bit of that in Italy in the summer. So those are those things, and I think that's it for big projects right now. Those are the ones that are going on, and the album available for purchase.
Tremendous.
And it's also on all of the streaming things.
Outstanding. All right. Well, thank you so much, Karl. This has been a real fun time for me, and I'm sure the viewers. Best of luck with everything in 2023 and beyond. And thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, Benjamin. This was a lot of fun, and best to you and your viewers and listeners. And hope to see you in February.
Yes, February 24th.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Again. And everybody, happy practicing all weekend and the rest of the week, and we'll see you this time next Friday. Take care.